We are a day away from the start of the Iowa football season, and LeShun Daniels back with us as we break it down. What's it like to run out Kinnick Stadium for game number one? We'll talk about that. Get ready for Utah State and LeShun's thoughts on the season as a whole today. Locked on Hawkeyes.
You are Locked on Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Trent Condon. He's LeShun Daniels, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, and you can also find us on YouTube on the video side of things. While you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's Gametime. LeShun, what's happening? We are here a day away from the season. Boy, it feels good.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, best time of the year, football season. I love it. It's an exciting part of the year. Everyone's got their hopes and dreams of the football season right ahead of them. So super pumped that it's back. I mean, almost feels like it just ended. Quick off season, and now we're back at it for the next 4 months. So it's pretty exciting.
You work so hard and then it goes so fast, and it doesn't matter what level it is. NFL may be a little bit different now with the 17 game regular season, but from the high school ranks, I mean, we rave about it every single year. Those 9 weeks just fly by. That's a regular season we play here in the state of Iowa. I'm sure it's the same as, been helping out over at the high school level and at the collegiate level. You get 12 of them now, but boy, just how fast it is. And the off season's long, getting up in the middle of the night and getting up and getting your workout in and waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning to do that. And then you get to this point. So fill us in. First, two different ways. The first time you ran out and ran onto the field at Kinnick Stadium for a game. And then as you become a veteran, what's that like every single year?
Yeah. So honestly, I don't think the first time you run out ever really changes every single year. I mean, especially that first game of the year. Obviously, coming in as a freshman and you run out for the first time, like it's pretty mind blowing. It's pretty exciting. Definitely like a surreal moment for sure. And you obviously want to try to keep your emotions in check as much as possible. But I mean, like if you're not getting butterflies and if you're not getting excited, it's like, do you even have a pulse or do you even enjoy, playing football? And I honestly felt like that kind of carried really throughout my entire career, especially that first game when you run out. You're always super pumped, you're super jacked because I mean, this is the first time you get to actually go against another team. It's not like in the NFL and you got the preseason games and you go against other teams and you practice against other teams, or even in high school where I know in Ohio we scrimmaged against other teams before we even got to our regular season. So college football is a little unique in that. So like this is the first time you actually get to hit someone else. So you're super pumped. You're jacked about getting out there and showing, and not just the fans and your teammates of all the work that you've done, but also yourself and really how you've improved, and really going to go out there and try to make some plays. So it's a real exciting time.
Well, it should be an exciting time for this football team. As you have probably been able to figure out, this last 2 weeks has been just all about Cade McNamara after the quad injury and what he sustained at Kids Day. I also wondered if we didn't see it, if it didn't happen at Kids Day and it was just another practice and we didn't have an open practice, how many people would know? You know what it's like inside the walls of Fort Kinnick. That's what I like to call it over there at the football offices. And, listening to the players kind of talk about it earlier in the week, injuries. What's it like playing for Coach Ferentz? You also played for another guy that doesn't like to talk about injuries very much at the next level in Bill Belichick. But what's Coach Ferentz like? What does he tell you guys, especially with injuries, when you're talking to the media, maybe even talking to friends that maybe will pass along information? What does he say about that front?
Yeah, he basically says don't talk about it. He's pretty much just like, yeah, we don't talk about injuries. Keep everything that you had that or knowledge about the injury tight to the vest. And I mean, obviously don't speak on really anybody else's injuries. Like don't try to speak up for someone else. And then like if you're the person that is injured, typically he's just like, yeah, direct it to the coaching staff and they'll handle it. So really it's like, yeah, we're not giving out any information or anything like that to, give another team an advantage or get an idea of where a player is at during practice throughout the week. And, you're just gonna have to find out on game day. So yeah, it was definitely something that we were specifically trained about when it came to media training. It was, yeah, do not talk about injuries. Don't talk about anyone else's injuries. If you typically get those questions, keep it very broad, kind of high level. And, if they want more details, they can ask the coaching staff. So,
After we've seen the last 3 years and Spencer Petras at the quarterback helm, a healthy Cade McNamara, we'll see what health actually looks like for him in game number one here if he ultimately does make it a go. But when you look at this and you break it down, LeShun, where are you with this offense? And what kind of improvements can we see with what feels like certainly an upgrade in talent?
yeah. So I'm excited to watch them. I think the biggest thing that I'm excited to watch the most, obviously, I'm going to be really excited to see the skill positions, but really anxious to see what the offensive line is going to look like tomorrow. Really, just because I feel like again over the past couple of years, offensive line play hasn't really been to the standard of what we have typically come to expect from Iowa football. And I think Coach Ferentz kind of touched on it a little bit throughout the offseason, and he touched on it a little bit more this week. So that's the one thing that I'm really curious to see. Like, is offensive line going to be playing together as a unit? Are we going to be avoiding some of those mental errors that we've had in previous seasons? Are we going to be able to create some vertical movement in the inside zone running game? Because I know especially last year, they got into a lot more, gap and counter schemes, just because, again, they weren't able to create that movement inside zone game. So I'm anticipating they're not going to completely just scrap that. Obviously, they're still going to keep some of that stuff because they were able to run it pretty well last year. But we know Coach Ferentz is just bread and butter, loves the inside and outside zone. So I'm going to be very curious to see what the movement is like up front. And I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see that just because as good as your skill guys can be, and unless you just have like a absolute rock star, superstar, Heisman candidate quarterback, like it's going to be pretty tough to, mask bad play of, offensive line. So I'm really excited to see them and hopefully that they take the next jump that we expect in their development. Because like when you look at position groups, obviously feel like offensively all the position groups have essentially upgraded from last year. So I'm really anxious to see how that offensive line is going to perform.
We're going to talk a little bit more about this season. We're going to get LeShun's season prediction of what it is. I did mine earlier in the week. We'll recap that and then give LeShun his opportunity. We'll see how close it is. Plus, we'll make some picks for week number one presented by FanDuel. Our picks against the spread coming up as we continue here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. It's a busy one. Game day is almost here. And speaking of game day, Gametime, that is where you want to go to get set up for this college football season, really any kind of season as it pertains to tickets. Buying tickets to your favorite events, it should be a stressful situation. Well, I got something for you right here. You can be around Kinnick Stadium as long as you got cell service and you can pick up a ticket right before the game. Gametime is fast and easy. It's the easiest way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, theater. Doesn't matter what you're looking for, they have you covered. Killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting ready and hyped for the fun that you're going to have. Get images of your seat before you buy. See exactly where you're going to be in Kinnick Stadium or whatever event you're going to, and know exactly what to expect when you arrive and buy those tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone. You don't even have to go through your email. Love that part of Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account Redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Trent Condon back with you alongside LeShun Daniels on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. LeShun, the season is here. We're pumped up for it. We're ready to go. Let's get your predictions on the season. So I went out game by game, and it was kind of boring ultimately. I basically chose the two games that I was going to be an underdog in as the losses at Penn State and at Wisconsin, and had them winning every other one. You know me, getting to know me last season. I can be a little bit of a negative fan at times. I get a little frustrated, and it's been a long, long time since I've seen championship seasons for Iowa in the Big Ten, 2004. I'm a Twins fan, 1991. I was 11. Bears, 1985. I was in kindergarten. So it's been a long time for the teams that I root for. Maybe that's a reason for some of my negativity from time to time. I'm optimistic about this team. I believe in it. I want to believe in everything. I believe in Cade McNamara, a rebuilt offensive line, the wide receivers, just on and on and on. We know the defense and special teams, what they're going to do. Not only did I have them going 10-2, I had them avenging one of their losses to Penn State in the championship game, 11-2. Maybe just maybe knocking on the doorstep of the college football playoff at 11-2, but that's a conversation for another day. So I'm optimistic, LeShun. Where are you with this team? When you look at it, when you break it down, what do you think ultimately this team is going to be for 2023?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic about the team as well because for starters, I know that they bring back another strong defense. So, like, regardless of how the offense performs the season, you look at the defense bringing a lot of guys, back from last year that were able to create production or step in when needed and make plays. And with Coach Parker running the defense, I'm never really worried about those guys. Like I know that they're gonna come out, they're gonna show up, and they're gonna play a typical Iowa Iowa football defense. But now, and then special teams, I know that special teams is gonna be strong. Coach Willits, he's got those guys handled. He's gonna have those guys ready to go. But now you're looking at the offensive side of the ball, and that's where there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of things that we don't know. You look at the team on paper, and you look at the guys that have transferred in, and you look at it, and you're like, okay, it looks like we have an upgrade essentially across every single position group on offense. And again, it's just on paper, so it's gonna really obviously fall back on those guys. That's gonna determine if it's gonna be an 8-4 type year or a 10-2, 11-1 type deal for the season. Just because again, you look at the time since Coach Brian has been the OC. I want to say that the Hawks are 31-1 when scoring over 25 points a game, and I mean that's a pretty like mind blowing stat. Like when you really think about it, so all Iowa has to do as easy. It's not as easy as I'm making it sound, but if you can get in that realm of get scoring, 3 touchdowns a game, maybe even going down and getting a couple field goals a game, like you put yourself in a really good position to be able to win a lot of games. And the schedule is a little bit more favorable than it was last year for sure. I mean, you don't have to go play Columbus. You don't gotta play Michigan, but you do have to go, and you got to go to Happy Valley. You got to go up to Wisconsin. Like those aren't going to be easy games by any stretch of the imagination. And it's Big Ten West football. You never know what what can happen. There's all types of craziness, especially if you saw the game from Minnesota and Nebraska last night. Is absolute madness. So that craziness is come to expect in the Big Ten West, but if the offense can sustain drives and they can put points on the board at the end of those drives, that's really going to be the difference. Like a couple drives that, typically would end in punts can even end in field goals. Like that is put your team in a much better situation than, they could be last year. So I'm super optimistic. Again, it's a favorable schedule. They're going to have some tough road games, even heading up to Iowa State can make for some trouble as well. But I really think that they have an opportunity to have a really strong team this year, and Cade ends up being the quarterback that we think he's going to be, like it could be end up having a pretty special year.
He's working through the quad injury. I came on here a couple of weeks ago after the injury. It was the week after the injury, 4 days later, I think it was. And I continue to hear from a couple of people inside the building that was a little more significant than was let on. We heard it was a tweak, and I said that, got a lot of blowback from it. It was not trying to create controversy. That's not what I've done. I've been in this business for 20 years. That's not what I do. But if I hear something, I always want to pass along to my listeners and to my viewers. And that's what we did here. And I just said that it's more significant. It was going to be probably up until a game week before they were going to know. And that's exactly the way that it played out. And regardless if he plays or not plays, you feel like you should be able to beat Utah State. Utah State's got a ton of new guys. Uh, they returned their quarterback, but outside of that, there's a lot of question marks with this team. Deacon Hill, a guy that's going out there, has not played at the collegiate level outside of a couple of mop-up snaps at Wisconsin. You look at him. Joe Labus, of course, started the bowl game a year ago. He's working his way back from injury. That quarterback room gets a little scary, though. But Cade is just so important. And it's not even stats with him. I don't know if you saw, there was an article from Fox Sports the other day and talking just about him. A lot of it was about his days at Michigan, the decision to transfer. But boy, his leadership qualities and the way that Michigan people continue to talk about him. How important is that? Leadership, it's something that Coach Ferentz talks all the time, but having a leader like that at the quarterback position, you had a guy like that in CJ Beathard, just what that means. And last couple of years, Petrus, I know people said he was a good leader, but he just didn't back it up on the field. Before that, you had Nate Stanley that did it on the field, but didn't have that kind of aura certainly around him, that the leader of men type of thing. What's it like when you had a CJ Beathard and it feels like Cade McNamara is?
Yeah, I mean, it really can help take your team from being a good team to honestly a great team.
Hmm.
Just that little bit, because when I think back my time playing with CJ, uh, not only was he a phenomenal player on the field, but like when you're able to, inspire others with, your play and your actions, whether it's, every single day in practice, in the film room, and then obviously carrying it over into the games, and you can get the rest of the team, especially like your offensive unit, to follow you and want to go ahead and make plays. So not only your quarterback looks good, but the entire team looks good. Like it creates that type of bond and just kind of camaraderie that gets your team over that hump. And everyone starts playing together as a unit, and you start to see, that Iowa football identity. Because when you look at, some of the great teams throughout Coach Ferentz's tenure, they all have very, very similar qualities. Like when you watch them on film, not just from just like obviously like the plays they run, but just how they play football, and how it's always a smart unit on the field. Everyone's playing tough and everyone's playing physical and together. Like when you look at it throughout the years and you look at some of those good teams, they all look very similar. And when you have a quarterback like that can get the entire team on one common mission and one common goal, like that's really the thing that can take your team from good to great. So because obviously having fantastic players on the team and having great coaches makes that makes that a little bit easier. But when you have an amazing leader like I did with CJ, that can get everyone on the same page, everyone moving toward common mission. That really is something that takes you to the next level. I mean, remember when we in 2015 we were playing at Indiana and CJ's jumping over and getting helicoptered into the end zone. I mean, like you see your leaders making plays like that, and you're like I got to go harder. Like I gotta match that type of energy. Like if we want to get to where we're trying to go. So yeah, everything that I've heard from the building and everyone's talking about Cade, like it obviously sounds like he's a phenomenal leader, and now you just want to see it backed up on the field, because being a part of a leader is having good play on the football field as well. So I'm super excited to watch him and watch how the entire team responds.
Right there with you. We continue here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. We're going to make our picks for the week, 5 games every week. I owe LeShun, I think, a cold one after last season. We'll see if he makes it over to Iowa City and we can meet up because he won the contest a year ago. We'll make 5 picks each and every week here throughout the course of the college football season presented by FanDuel. College football season is here, and this season Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. It's each Friday on Locked On. Every one of the pages, we got you covered. We'll go live from 10 until noon Central Time on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, all the big rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday from 10 a.m. until noon Central Time on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss it. All right, LeShun, we are ready. It is time for our picks once again. We got 5 games this week, and we get things started with your dad's alma mater, the Ohio State Buckeyes, your home state team. They are a big 30.5-point favorite as they go to Indiana. Pick number one's yours.
Yeah, so it's going to be actually really interesting. I mean, for this game, mainly because Ohio State's coming in with a new quarterback. They got a new quarterback. Obviously, they have talent all over the football field. 30-point favorite is kind of crazy, to be honest. So I don't know if pretty good unit this year. But again, with the talent they have on that roster from offensively, just looking at the offense, I mean, they're going to be a phenomenal offensive unit if the quarterback can just get their skill guys the ball. So even though I might be shaky, 30 points, especially for the first game of the year, I'm gonna go ahead and take it just because the talent that they have on offense and their ability to score. They have guys that can score essentially every single play that they touch the football. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take that.
Going with the Bucks. All right, for me, I'm going to go Indiana. Too many points on the road. Game one. A lot of new faces for Indiana. I have questions at the tackle position, and they still really haven't, though they called McCord the starter, haven't decided on quarterback. Both guys are going to go. Give me Indiana. Game number two. I'm up first here. I think Purdue. I love Ryan Walters, what he did defensively at Illinois. I wonder how it's going to marry running the air raid offense with the defense that Walters wants to run there at Purdue. And this Fresno team, they're good. Year in and year out, they're one of the powers of the Mountain West here. I'm going to grab the 4. Give me Fresno.
Fresno, huh? Interesting. I'm gonna go Purdue.
All
I'm
right.
gonna go Purdue. I'm gonna go Purdue. Even though I know that they, again, when you lose a quarterback that was as productive as Aiden O'Connell, obviously that puts your team in a new spot for sure. But playing at home, season opener, uh, 4 point favorites. I mean, I think they can go ahead and swing that. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Purdue there.
It will be our debut of NBC Saturday Night Football. It is West Virginia going to Penn State. Old rivalry from back in the day. They haven't played in since the early 90s, though. And this rivalry went away with all the changes in college football. West Virginia getting 20.5. LeShun, you got the first pick.
Yeah. So I've heard a bunch of things about this Penn State team. Apparently, this might be one of their better teams in
I
a
love them.
good little while. I mean, you got a 5-star quarterback that they seem to love, which actually my high school team played them like
Yeah.
a few years back, actually. Played him a few years back, and he was phenomenal. I mean, I remember high school coach talking about him like, yeah, like he's the real deal. So that's going to be a really exciting game because again, like you just mentioned, it's a rivalry that hasn't really been played in a good little minute. And but I know how tough it is to come in and play at Penn State, and with knowing how strong that I think that this team could be, uh 20 and a half is a good little bunch. I don't know. I don't think that they're going to get that 20 and a half. I think it'll be a little bit closer than that just because of how strong I feel like this rivalry is going to be. But I do feel like Penn State's going to win this, but not quite the 20 and a half.
I'm right there with you. A line play for West Virginia, very good on both the offensive and defensive lines. What they really showed at the end of last season when Garrett went in there as the quarterback, he's a running quarterback. They've been a whole lot better there. Neil Brown's also coaching for his job at West Virginia. I think they keep it relatively tight. I got Penn State winning, still by double digits, but we'll keep it inside the 20.5. Game of the weekend, it'll be Sunday night. LSU against Florida State from Orlando. We saw this game a year ago in New Orleans. It was epic down to the wire, and LSU missed an extra point that proved to be the difference in this one. I think LSU bounces back. I love everything about this team. And though Brian Kelly's not a very likable figure, he's one hell of a football coach. I'm going to take LSU. Go Tigers -2.5.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this one with LSU. I honestly think this is going to come down to who do you think is going to be the more dynamic quarterback? I mean, when you got Jordan Travis over at Florida State, and then you got Jaden Daniels over at LSU. Obviously, Brian Kelly has done a phenomenal job everywhere he's been throughout his entire career, and has done phenomenally with their offenses. And I honestly think that it's going to continue here. And I honestly think that Jaden Daniels is a really, really good quarterback. And I think that some of the talent that LSU continually has on their entire unit, I think that's going to put them over the top for this one.
All right, we wrap things up with the Iowa game. Utah State coming to town. Aggies getting 24 against the Hawkeyes. LeShun, take it away.
I'm not taking Iowa on a 20-point favorite until I see something. So give me Utah State to cover for sure. Obviously, I think that Iowa's going to come out and they're going to play well, and they're going to win this opener for sure. But I don't know if they cover that. If they do cover that, I'm going to be pretty ecstatic and be like, okay, hold on, we might actually have something here offensively. So give me Utah State, but super excited to watch the guys go out.
I'm right there with you. I'm going to grab the points. No surprise in that one. Prove it to me. Prove me wrong, Hawks. And let's get this win and a cruise and a victory. LeShun, great to have you back again as we get ready for football season. We'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, sounds good. Go Hawks.
That's LeShun Daniels. I'm Trent Condon. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. We will have an instant reaction podcast coming your way after the game as, my wife will be driving us back to her grandma's house. Yeah, so that means I get to do the podcast from the passenger seat after the game, after we take the kids over to Kinnick Stadium on Saturday. Look forward to that. Look forward to another busy week. Looking forward to Iowa football. We'll talk to y'all coming up again tomorrow. Go Hawks.